Are we live? Can people hear me? Oh, this is... Oh, well, good evening. This is an auspicious start to the evening. Good evening. Welcome to week 8 of the Total Simsport broadcast split of the European Sprint Series 2023 Season 1 at Barcelona Historic. That's quite the mouthful. And as the cars are gridding up, Sean, is this a full lap of pace or is it a half lap? Just so I know how quickly I can go through this.
You're going to have to be quick.
Oh, okay, let's speed through this like the drivers will speed through this race. Nicholas Bowe is on pole of the BMW Hybrids with a 125.597. He has nearly cleared the field by an entire second. Dennis Wolf alongside him. You can see there, just under a second behind, and then a very close gaggle of class. Clement Marie in third, Alexis Luyer. And I'm going to apologise again to our French drivers because it is a language I have never been able to pronounce very well. Is in fourth. Aero Attila is in fifth with Morgan Soom in sixth. We've got 16 cars in the LMDh field tonight, so expect some close racing there. And then LMP2 on pole. Friend of the broadcast, Paul Busby, has put it on pole with 129.266, but it's a much closer field. Francesco Manna in second, Alistair Catchpole, another effects driver in third, Jose Cazon in fourth, Shivanath in fifth, and all 5 of those separated by less than 4/10 of a second, with Mike Sparns in sixth. And then very quickly, the GTE's Jerome Coquelet on pole with a 136.4, Luke Smoker alongside him, just 2.5 tenths behind. Juan Martin in third, with Andrew Medell in fourth, Alessandro Petitlian and Sylvain Delpech on the third row. And look at that, it's almost like we know what we're doing. We're ready to go as we just wait for pole sitter Nicholas Bowe to go, and he has gone well. He is already clear of Dennis Wolf, who is having to fight off Clement Marie with a big train of LMDHs behind him, and they're beginning to snake down the main straight as they try to avoid too much of a tow for anyone. Are we going to get through this first corner nice and safely? Remember, the brakes on these LMDHs, so easy to lock up while you are still fresh and cold. And we'll see how the brake bias has been done. It doesn't look like we've lost anyone so far, but Jose Cazon and a few LMP2s, including Alistair Catchpole, I think, have all been involved in a crash. So Paul Busby is going to have a slightly easy time of it. Let's not jinx him, but so far that looks to be the case. And then in your GTE field, Jerome Coquelet has gone through nice and safely, and Juan Martin has cleared Luke Smoker early on. So very much appears to me like it was an advantage to be on the lean side of the track as you came onto the main straight, because it does seem like the pole side of people have got away far better than the other side of people. So,
well, I'm just looking at the incident reports we've got up here, and there's actually more incidents than anything else that's happened in the first few minutes of this race. There's plenty of incidents, probably up the main straight. I know when I raced yesterday, 4 LMP cars had crashed before the start line.
yeah, as much as I like this track, I think it is quite easy to lose it around, especially early on in the race. As you can see, Nicholas Bowe, I mean, let's have a look at the lap times. He's, I mean, nearly a second and a few tenths clear of Dennis Wolf. So that's a very good first lap for Nicholas Bowe. But of course, this is an hour-long race, so still plenty of time to go. And we've seen bigger leads than this get slashed just by one mistake. So let's not pretend the race is over just yet. And Paul Busby has got Manna company right behind him now as well. So as much as we only seem to have, I think, 6 cars left in the LMP2 field, they all seem to be pretty solid drivers, so we should still have plenty of racing to go.
Tell you what, these LMPs are very close to these LMDHs. As you just see one of them go by the wayside there.
Yeah, that might be a stressful problem for Paul Busby. If there's any incidents, we saw this the other week at Interlagos, we've seen it before this season as well, with the LMDHs trying to carve their way back through the field. It is very tricky when these cars are so close in time, especially when you compare it to the LMP1s that had the way they're boosted wide, they could just shoot out of the exit of each corner to get through. No such luck with the LMDHs. And we can have a look now at Luke Smoker, who started started in P2 for the GTEs. Juan Martin didn't get past him. We've seen a lot of Juan Martin in the GTEs in this series, and he is a very quick driver, so Smoker will be doing well to keep up with him. But it's also worth keeping half an eye on the leader, Jerome Coquelet, who you can see he's still within the draft range, but if second and third start fighting a bit too much, that half a second lead, he could very easily end up out of the draft range, and that's when the real advantage. That's what we've seen with Nicholas Bowe already in the LMDH field. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. I mean, you can already see that he's well clear of the draft range, and it's, I mean, I guess, Sean, it's one of those things of how much do you just try and drive safe, or how much do you push to try and build on that advantage?
Well, I can tell you what happened to me yesterday. It was all right. I was doing fine. I was in a train of 4, and I got turn 1 slightly wrong. Ran over the curb on the inside on 1, so I had to slow down a lot more on 2, and I lost the back of that train. Then within 2 or 3 laps, they were 2 seconds up the road. So if you're not in that train, you might as well give up, really. No way of getting back if you're competitively racing.
Yeah, I was watching a stream of Dave Cam, and I appreciate that the Mazda MX-5s are a slightly different machinery to what we've got on the stream here, but him in second place at Virginia, they just shot away the second they were out of the draft of the other drivers, and second place managed to hold on to his coattails, as Luke Smoker is doing here. You can see just how close he's getting to Juan Carlos Martin here, but trouble is, this is not really a section of the track that you can do an overtake through the chicane of 7 and 8 and then the fast right-hander of 9, but if you can line something up for turn 10, as I think we've got a slightly cross Paul Busby, I'm going to say Alex Gerber coming back past in the LMDH, he's car number 15. Paul Busby is down 2 places, and I suspect that has something to do with the LMDH that is just slightly ahead of him. That's Stephen Nath, who is up from 5th to 2nd in LMP2. So let's see if we can get a replay of what happened as we're coming on to the main straight. So that's the 23 of Troy Romanesco. And yeah, Paul just sort of, clearly quicker on pace, and he's lost out for it. But
I think what may have happened there is that Paul never expected that LMDH to break going into turn 13, which we know they can't do flat out in any of these classes, but they can go a lot faster than what we saw happen there.
It's it's been quite a spicy start to the race. I mean, we've lost 6 of our 11 LMP2 drivers. So, I mean, for Lucas O'Neill, who is currently at 5th, he's up 6 places. Huge beneficiary there. He's in car number 37 as well, so that will be exactly what I was hoping for. We've got quite the nice battle developing here at the front of the GTE field. So Luke Smoker's actually managed to get ahead of Juan Carlos Martin. So I wonder if he did make a move stick into turn 10 on the previous lap. But by fighting, they have brought Andrew Medell and Sylvain Delpech. It was actually on the main straight, you can see here. So Smoker just biding his time, just braking a bit more confidently than Juan Martin, and taking the inside of turn 1. Obviously that becomes the outside of turn 2, but then it's the inside again of turn 3, and Juan Martin had to give that up, but Andrew Medell and Sylvain Delpech are now right behind them. This 4-car train is just beginning to allow Jerome Coquelet to slowly pull away. He was nearly half a second faster on the previous lap, which is obviously not that much in the grand scheme of things, but we're 5 laps in. Imagine another 5 laps of that, suddenly that's a 3-second lead, and that's far more comfortable, as we are not quite up to the LMDHs catching the GTEs. Just to sort of give people an idea of the lap time differences between classes, there's about 3 or 4 seconds between the LMDHs and the LMP2s, and then there's about 6 further seconds back to the GTEs, which means there's nearly a 10-second gap between our fastest and slowest classes. So you would expect, Sean, not too much trouble for the LMDHs getting past, but drivers are still getting used to the cars, so let's not assume it will all be clean, especially after the start of the race we've seen.
Yeah, Barcelona's renowned in there's no grip no matter what the weather, but we're only 22 degrees on track at the moment, so it's not particularly warm, but it's going to be a lot of slippy corners for the cars, particularly as they get into the final half of this race.
Indeed, and I do wonder as well how much it being a night race is going to affect things, because I think to some extent, well, in some senses, I find it easier as a driver in the dark with multi-class, because I think headlight flashes are much easier to grab attention with, or maybe I'm just not a particularly attentive driver. But the flip side of that is you lose so much visual fidelity, and I think it's easy to make mistakes when you can't quite see what is going on, as we see Jerome Hannick getting past Paul Busby. Busby very much seemingly the victim of slower LMDHs, and just giving us sort of the flash of annoyance to Hannick there as he tries to recover back through the field. And we saw a couple of laps ago Busby right on the back of Nath, but he's probably a second down on him now, and it possibly entirely down to the LMDHs. But what is just going to have to hope here is that the luck will sort of come around back into his favour, and that Hannick will disrupt the flow of Nath and Francesco Lamanna, who we haven't really talked about, but you know, he's doing quite well. He's taken advantage of the incidents Paul Busby has been involved in, and he's got himself into the lead of this decimated LMP2 field. I mean, he's only actually up one place. He did qualify in second, so he's clearly no slouch. I mean, he's car number 8. But he's going to have to worry about these LMDHs coming through as well. I mean, Alexander Gerber is only just ahead of him, and he's only really one mistake away from being back into his environment as well.
Well, the good news for Busby is that Hannick has just got past Nath as well. At least there's someone to chase.
This is true, and apparently my volume could do with going up a little bit, I'm hearing. Just to sort of let people know it's not me being quiet necessarily. It's blame the beautiful sound of these engines of these cars. And I mean, this train for second in GT seems to have calmed down a little bit, but Medel and Delpech are still fighting it out for P4, with Medel currently holding the advantage. I think he's been ahead of Delpech the entire time, and just behind, you'll see them coming into the background now as well. Timo Stumpf and Kaida Miyatake are also having a fight. Stumpf, car number 39, I think will be the lowest numbered car still left in this race. I mean, we've got a couple of recovered LMP2s, so he's done well to get Miyatake just behind him. But Delpech and Martin, I think, have been trading places up the road as well as they come into turn 1. Miyatake, that was a bit cheeky, I think, Sean, just sort of poking your nose in there. That half committal look at an overtake. All that's really ever going to achieve, in my opinion, is 2 cars spinning out of the race, and we've now got LMPHs just to complicate matters as well. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that little poke your nose on the inside move that drivers sometimes do.
No, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, there's show your nose, but you don't want to be outside if you're doing it. Got to make that commitment to the move and trust that the other guy knows that you're going to make that commitment. Otherwise, as you say, it's going to end up in a crash.
Indeed it is, and I mean, you can see how much the traffic's affecting drivers. I mean, Nicholas Bowe in the lead of LMDH, who actually we'll talk about that in a second. Let's just see what's happened to Iro Antilla here as he's been coming past. That's, oh dearie me, that's really not the way to get past the driver. You can see what he's trying to do. He wanted the inside line coming in to, I believe we're at turn 5 there.
They're fighting now, that's not
and yeah, that Alexandre Duvignac in the number 20 Corvette, I think just showing his displeasure with Antilla there. You can see he wanted the inside line coming through, or was it turn 5? Oh no, we're back live now. That threw me a little bit, because you know, it's the awkward thing of these smaller straights with lots of left-right corners, is it's a bit awkward if you catch a car halfway through. You're always going to want the inside line as the faster car. As you can see here, that is car number 4. That's Antilla still. Getting past Medel and Delpech with less of a problem. Actually, what's happened to Juan Carlos Martin? He's down to 5th from 2nd. Well, actually, no, we saw Luke Spoker get past him earlier, but Juan Martin is now behind Medel and Delpech, so I wonder if that was traffic or if he'd made a mistake elsewhere. But so far, Sean, to me, it looks like these LMDHs are not being particularly patient, weaving their way through these train battles. And I think, well, I say that was a bit better dealt with there, but yeah, we've seen LMDHs getting quite impatient so far.
Yeah, I think it's the nature of multi-class racing, and this track at night, it's not the easiest place to pass. And as you know, racing at night, that You have to use that slight little bit of depth perception, particularly if you're not in something like VR, and it can just make those moves seem a little bit more on than they might be.
And while we've been discussing that, Medel Delpech have been having a fantastic side-by-side battle through the infield of Catalunya here. They've now got an LMDH company behind them. How patient is that number 25 of Owen Price going to be? Pretty safe, pretty patient. Let's see how they deal with these fast right-handers. He's getting round okay so far, but is this going to compromise Andrew Medel? If anything, it's going to be an advantage as he now has the slipstream to avoid Juan Martin behind from trying to make a move on him as well. But still, that Delpech has had a very solid first 15 minutes. He's up 3 places to 3rd. And you just thought how well these GTs are driving together. It would be a shame for the faster class cars to knock any of these guys out, because they've been providing the best racing so far. Although I say this, there is a bit of a train in the mid-pack of the LMDHs forming around Lorenzo Scanfurla in 9th. We've got Fabian Stamker and Ruben Stegemann just behind him as well, and they'll be coming through this traffic. Well, just now, actually, in fact. That's still Van Delpech just behind. So Stamker's got through, and he's up 5 places, which is the best gain of anyone in the LMDH field. Although some of that may well just be down to attrition, because nearly everyone behind him is someone that has crashed out. But, to finish first you have to finish, or I guess to finish 10th, first you have to finish. And as we're a quarter of the way through the race, we're seeing this certainly seems to be one of these races where keeping the car on the track is perhaps going to be more important than the raw pace.
Yeah, I'd say so. We've lost another LMP2, so we're down to 5 now.
It's getting very lonely in the middle class, but I think the LMDHs and the GTE drivers will be quite happy with that, because it's always awkward when you're interacting with the middle classes. And just to sort of show the pace he's had, we caught up with Paul Busby about 7 or 8 minutes ago. He was in 3rd, getting understandably irritated with LMDHs. Not only has he overtaken Shivanath, he is now 2 and a bit seconds clear of Shivanath, and he is right on the tail of LMP2 leader Francesco Lamanna, who really was just minding his own business, I think, and suddenly has got a very quick and probably quite angry Paul Busby behind him. I mean, last lap, just before this one, for example, Paul Busby was about 6-7 tenths of a lap quicker, and this lap he was 3 tenths of a second quicker. So in just 2 laps, he's gained nearly 1.5 seconds on the leader. So you really have to wonder. I appreciate he'll have had the draft, but he seems to have a huge pace advantage. But now they've caught up with the GTEs themselves as well. So how is that going to factor into our LMP2 battle here? And let's not forget Shivanath is only 2 seconds down the road, so podium battle very much still alive. And as we follow this, Kaida Miyatake in the GTs has come into the pits, so perhaps the consequence of driving quite aggressively, looking for that overtake. I don't want to make that declaration too... and there's Paul Busby's turn to get flashed by someone else. I think he'd rather be flashed and ahead than not flashed and behind, if you're going to choose.
On the getting into the pits there, from my experience around here this week, I had to pit early a couple of my races, purely because my tyres had just got too hot, and I needed to give them a break and cool down a bit, and to do that is do a stop early. Hope that you can get round again.
It's a tricky thing, these pit stops, and I think that's the thing. If you get damage 10 minutes in, that's a lot better than damage on the first lap, as you say, because if you're in your pit window, it gives you a bit of advantage. And actually, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this side-by-side battle for the lead of LMP2 into turn 1. Paul Busby has the inside and seems to be more confident on the brakes. Lamanna was looking at the switchback, but wasn't quite able to get the car slowed down in time to stay alongside. And Paul Busby has made the move stick. That was a very good move indeed from the Effect Esports driver. But as you can see on the track map, they've still got about half the GTE field to get past. Francesco Lamanna is going to have his draft all the way through this lap. He does not want to give that up. However, that was very intelligent use of the traffic there. Let's say it was deliberate from Paul Busby, because he put that number 9, that's Juan Martin, placed that car in such a way that Paul Busby was going to get the inside line into turn 5, but Francesco Lamanna wasn't, and it's just given him a little bit of breathing room, but not enough breathing room to get him out of the draft. So he's going to have to keep driving the socks off of that car. I mean, I say that, let's hope that car doesn't have any socks on it, because that's superfluous weight. And this is the turnabout, is because now that's car 12, Sylvain Delpech, Paul Busby held up by him. And of course, I say held up, I don't mean that in a, you know, Sylvain Delpech is doing nothing wrong by being there. But as we come back onto the main straight a lap later, Busby has got a 6.5 tenth advantage over Francesco Lamana. But let's see what that becomes by the end of the main straight, just to see how effective the draft actually is. And
a couple of cars snap as well, Chris.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I don't think Lamana was able to catch up. So Paul Busby, I mean, he did get a better exit off the last corner, but I wonder if he's also running a lower downforce setup just to get a bit more straight line speed, because if he's able to pull that gap out that much on the straight with the draft advantage, I think Francesco Lamana is going to have to rely on other drivers to keep him in this battle for the lead. Or it could well be that his car just gets a bit more settled in a different part of the stint. We've of course still got over 40 minutes to go, so let's not be counting any chickens before they've hatched just yet. And the aforementioned battle in the midfield for the LMDH it's carried on. We've got 5 drivers all within a second of each other, from Baptiste Seguin up in 8th all the way down to Troy Romanesco in 12th, and it's Stegeman and Romanesco looking at the feistiest of this pack. Is Romanesco going to try and make a move in car number 27? Sorry, 23 on Ruben Stegeman in the 23. He has gone on the inside. This does seem to be the best place to make a move so far, Sean. I think all of the overtakes on merit I've seen have been around that corner. I mean, it is the longest straight, so it does make sense, I suppose. But are there any other places you'd be looking at overtakes?
It's a difficult to pass this. I mean, you could try and make it. It's coming under the bridge as they're approaching it now. Have to trust it's actually going to. Other than that, mistakes around it. It's never been an easy place to park, particularly on the classic historic that we've got. Don't have that sharp stop on to the around 180 degree constant radius corner instead.
And I must say, as a driver, at least as an open-wheel driver, it is so much more pleasant driving this configuration of Catalunya. And perhaps in some ways better for multi-class as well, because we can see in the foreground, actually, that's a battle for position. That's Scanfurla and Stampka, and Scanfurla's just got past Stampka, I believe. Although, again, like we were saying about making the overtake there, he has opened himself up to Stampka, having the draft on him all the way along the main straight. So let's see if that was perhaps a bit of a premature move. Actually, doesn't look like Stampka is able to pull up close enough. He is sort of sticking that nose out just a little bit, I think, just to sort of remind him he is there. But generally speaking, at this level, mind punting doesn't work. That's why I certainly capped out with my iRating, because it turned out at a certain point with these drivers, you actually just have to be good. You can't just intimidate them into crashing like you can in the mid-pack races that I used to frequent. And you can see there as well the strength of field in all 3 fields. It's lower than some of the races we've had this season, but we're still talking about mid-low 3,000 iRating as being a weak field. It's really not. I mean, these are very, very fast drivers. Just some of them perhaps less able to keep these cars on the track in the night around this circuit, as we are, I think, of our 41 car field, only 28 of our drivers have had to, basically 13 people have gone in the pits for repairing damage or retiring. So that's an aberration compared to pretty much every other race we've seen this season. Although I'm sure if we'd broadcast Mandicourt, had that gone ahead, I suspect we'd have seen something similar there.
Sure that all 8 cars did mount.
We could probably look it up if the race gets into a bit of a lull. Maybe not the best use of anyone's time. But yeah, it's these races do seem to get to this stage where we ended. Well, I was about to say we get into a holding pattern as we have another fight, and Stampka very much defending his position there. In fact, Lorenzo Scanfurla pitted on the last lap. I wonder I didn't notice him pick up any damage anywhere, so I wonder if that was he's just decided to get out of this battle and run an alternate strategy. Because, of course, if you're in the fastest class field, you're not worrying quite so much about being lapped by other cars and them getting in the way. And let's see where he comes out. I mean, he was stopped for 20 seconds, so...
That was the first one to stop, though, so he is the benchmark.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at their lap times. If he's going to get out and he's going to be quicker than he's going to be able to... It's traffic, because they are lapping that group at the same time.
And, I mean, if you look on the track map as well, he is black 14. And you can see there, 1, 2, 3 in blue. That's our top 3 in the LMP2 field. He is going to catch those in a couple of laps' time. And, I mean, they're not going to be happy, the LMP2s, because they've had enough of the LMDHs in this race. They're also not going to get blue flags because they are on the same lap, because there is not that much of a pace disparity with the pit stop. So it'll be interesting to see if Scanfurla isn't held up too much by them, because I would imagine coming through a GTE pack as an LMP2 is going to hold you up a bit less than coming through, or LMDH, sorry, than coming through the mid-class, even if it is the top 3, and they're not exactly fighting. But at the same time, Busby is not pulling away as fast as I perhaps assumed he would. I mean, he's still, you know, he's out of the draft range, and he's lapping about 0.2 of a second a lap quicker, which is pretty damn good when you're talking about drivers over 4,000 iRating. But, you know, these 3 LMP2s are going to all be pushing hard. I'll be interested to see if this is of benefit to Scanfurla or not. And while this is going on, again, the GTE field, this is the first time this season, really, that we've been able to focus on battles throughout the pack, because it's the first time we've had proper battles all the way through. So we've had battles for the lead, but never all the way through the field. And this time it's Lionel Cummins and Alessandro Patiglio for 8th and 9th, and as you can see on the track map, they're pretty much bang in the middle of all of the traffic, with a few LMDHs still to come. All the LMP2s mercifully on the other side of the circuit, but that one LMDH there just perhaps preventing Patiglio from looking at making a move. And while we're talking about that, Luke Smoker is having a very good race, having got past Juan Martin in the early stages, have now caught up our leader Jerome Coquelet, and is looking very interested indeed in making that move. But we have got faster class traffic in the way, and they got very close to contact there coming out turn 5, and I suspect the apology heard over race voice comms was for Jerome Coquelet there, who just gives the flash of anger, takes a less than ideal line through the chicane. So is Luke Smoker going to be able to line up a move? It doesn't look like he's close enough, but it very much to me looks like we've got a battle on our hands for the lead in GTE here. We'll have to see if Luke Smoker is able to get the move lined up as we come through the final 2 corners of the circuit. You can see how hard he's pushing that car. A little bit of oversteer on acceleration through the corner there.
Has crashed, so you know. So we're on.
Apparently iRacing has crashed again. It's been very stable recently for us. Owen Price, I think, has just caused an accident. I've heard him over voice chat. Iro Antilla and Baptiste Segui have gone past him into 10th and 11th, with Owen Price in 12th of LMDH. We are still following Luke Smoker on board. He was not able to close up on Jerome Coquelet into the first corner as they are on lap 16. About 33 minutes into the race now. So, 27 minutes into the race. 33 minutes left to go. So we're not quite at the halfway mark yet. And I can sort of tell how much Sean's iRacing client is resetting, because I've just lost my timing tower overlays. I've still got them on my other screen though, so I can sort of talk you through what's happening as another bit of LMDH traffic has come through past, and again compromising, very similar to the 2 laps ago. Jerome Coquelet into turn 5, getting compromised by the LMDH. Luke Smoker a little bit closer as we come through the right-hander of turn 9, but again, not close enough to be able to get a move done into turn 10. He's just following for now, but again, we've talked about this in previous weeks. The longer you can tuck in behind the car in front before the pit stops, you're going to see the advantage when it comes to the amount of time you're stopped, because of course you will need less fuel to fill up. And again, this gap is pretty stable at around about 0.4 of a second as we come through the final corner. Again, these laps are going very quickly indeed, I must say. And again, this time catching an LMDh at a nice time as it goes through on the main straight. Actually, Luke Smoker is getting very, very close into the braking zone, not looking to make the move, but he is now just 0.2 of a second behind Jerome Coquelet. So if he can just get that last corner right on the same lap that Jerome Coquelet doesn't quite get it right, as he's dealing with a lot of pressure now. First time in this race he's had to deal with this amount of pressure from another car, and they will have a Fume 4 or LMDHs coming through. Luke Santos in 6th, who he's had a lot of bad luck in this series. He's often out on turn, or lap 1 rather, and he's managed to keep that car on the track and is reaping the rewards in P6 of LMDHs. He will be the next driver through to come past our lead 2 GTEs. And while we follow them, an update on LMP2, which is it's beginning to stabilise. Those gaps are beginning to get a little bit wider. Paul Busby still in the lead, about 2 seconds clear of Francesco Lamana, and then Shiva Nath about 3 seconds further down. And I suspect Sean's client has reconnected because everything has just magically burst back to life on screen. Back. Hooray! So you can see what's happened. You've basically just missed some quite engaging onboard footage of Luke Smoker tucked up behind the leader of GTE, Jerome Coquelet, who I must say, being car number 36 on the field, is doing a fantastic job to remain in the lead. You can see there another LMDH behind. That might catch them at an awkward time into the braking zone of the first corner. Nope, they're far quicker than I thought they were. Oh no, I beg your pardon, that's actually the previous GTEs. And actually this is a fight for P7, Fabian Stampka, Troy Romanesco, Fabian Stampka, and that's a little bit of netcode contact. I think would have been contact regardless. Stampka has got ahead, but I mean, quite aggressive considering we've still got half an hour of this race still to go. I would have thought they'd want to be a bit more cautious, especially as that seems to be the name of the game at the moment in terms of making up positions.
Yeah, I know a couple of LMD8 saying that the tyres and off. It isn't the first time we've heard that this season either. It seems like the tyre wear is really made for the hour sprints.
Yeah, and it's something to keep an eye out for is just how much these drivers are able to stay switched on as we get into the final few minutes of the race. And Shiva Nath has pitted from P3 in the LMP2s. Let's wait to see how long they are stopped for, to see whether or not that is an enforced early stop or just an alternative strategy from him. I mean, he's been stopped for 25 seconds, so I mean, this is where me doing some research into the pit stop times of our class. Oh, and there's a bit of contact there with one of the GTEs as Fabian Stampka has come round. That would that have been Luke Smoker? It was, based on the sarcastic feedback he is now giving in voice chat. So let's see exactly what happened there. Yeah, he was saying thank you for going for a gap that wasn't there, and I mean, from that angle, I would be inclined to agree with Luke Smoker's assessment of that incident. I think sometimes the LMDHs and in the past LMP1 cars with their higher downforce perhaps don't appreciate quite how much of the apex a GT is going to need, because they don't have access to the same level of downforce. They're going to, I think the kink at Road America is the best example of this, is that if you dive down the inside of a GTE there, they're not going to make the corner if they don't take the apex, so they are going to crash into you. And
yeah, I mean, I think that just shows how quick a perfectly reasonable, I suppose, second place, edging in, coming first place there, just one slight nudge and you lose, what, 6 seconds in that case.
And I think as Francesco Lamana has also pitted from LMP2, I think there may well have been an incident with LMP2 leader Paul Busby, and again, I think another LMDH. Don't know how serious the contact would have been, but we can hopefully get a replay of that now. So you can see LMDH coming out of the pits there. On the inside, I mean, Paul Busby running his own race, and they're coming together on the apex there. And that's just for good measure, giving a little love tap as that's the car number 17. So that's Alexander Gerber, who I think was the first LMDH that caused issues for the LMP2s. So he's not going to be a popular driver with them there. Although
I think Gerber might be a faulty word. It's race for Mr. Busby.
Yes, not going to be a popular man indeed. And it's not an incident we want to see, as Nicholas Bowe, who again, this is the curse of being very, very good in the lead, is that we just end up not talking about you. But Bowe has pulled out a 15-second lead over Dennis Wolf, who, you know, from watching these races over the last 8 weeks, we can tell you is a very quick driver. And Nicholas Bowe has managed to go 15 seconds quicker than him over the last 35 minutes, which might not sound like a lot, but at this level, it really, really is.
Look at the stats for ESS this season. Number one driver on championship points is Wolf. He's the number one season. May not be leading the championship here in the split, but definitely it's where it counts at the iRacing Championship.
Yeah, and he's actually managed to lap, Nicholas Bowe has managed to lap all but 7 of his LMDH competitors, which when you consider we have a 16-car LMDH field, I'm being a little bit let's use I'm being a little bit silly here because we've got a few retired LMDHs, and actually all of the LMDHs outside the top 5 have now pitted, with Luke Santos pitting as well. So it's been a bit of an odd race for pit strategy. I wonder to what extent is that people just sort of trying to get out of the way of traffic, although as you can see from the track map, there's not really many parts of the track that are clear of that traffic currently. So I mean, it's a tricky one to gauge, I guess, Sean, but sometimes that early pit stop just gives you a bit more advantage. Actually, if we look at it, Lorenzo Scanfurla is ahead of Antilla and Romanesco, and he's now ahead of Luke Santos as well, but he is miles behind Ruben Stegeman, who I believe he was fighting with beforehand, if I remember correctly, so it's not quite worked out for Scanfurla, but there are a few drivers that he has managed to get ahead of.
Yes, cars trying to get out of the way of the faster cars, and I'm sure you've been there where you've got a guy seconds a lap, the new single split your series might run. I'm looking in the bins, and it is difficult to gauge going to pass you. Just don't know how quick they are where you. And particularly on a track like this, Chris, where it's a lot of flow. Very flowing track, and there's very few places to overtake. You might think you're getting out of the way, but yards down the road, you're actually on their racing line. Yeah,
and you can actually see there with Luke Santos in the LMDH in the background, making a GTE very grumpy as they came through the chicane at turns 7 and 8, because he only just about got in front before the during the braking zone of that chicane. I think the GTE was forced to slow down, and it's like you say, it's a very flowing track. If you're forced to slow down there, especially going up that hill, it is going to cost you a lot of lap time. And remember, like the top 8 GTEs, who are all the ones still realistically in the race, none of them are pitted yet, so there's still plenty of time and plenty of opportunity for stuff to go wrong for them. And you can see in the background there behind Scanfurla, Iro and Tiller doing the right thing in terms of that is a textbook into the braking zone overtake of a slower class, because flashing the headlights, pulling out early, making it very obvious what you're going to do, and it just gives the other driver plenty of time to mentally and technically adjust to what you're doing. As we can see, someone's perhaps
take it on your own from.
Yeah, there was a GTE facing the wrong way on the inside of turn 4 there. Not entirely sure. There is a long list of drivers we have lost in this race, and after that incident we saw with the LMP2s, I don't believe Paul Busby actually had much damage, and in fact he managed to get that car serviced in the pits 4 seconds quicker than either Shiva Nath or Francesco Lamanna did. So he's 3 seconds behind Shiva Nath, he's 6 seconds behind Francesco Lamanna, and he's rapidly running out of time to catch them back up. He's managed to do it once already this race, I think you'd have to say, looking at the amount of time left, I know Paul is a very strong driver indeed, but he's, I think, going to at this stage have to rely on other drivers screwing it up for the LMP2s, and there don't seem to be many drivers likely to do that unless the P6 and P7 LMP2s are running so slowly that they can compromise P1 and P2. But he's got past that first GT. Okay, let's see what happens with the second GT, because I don't think he's going to catch him in time before the chicane. It's car number 35 of the GTs, which is Rafa Oliveira.
Let's let him through there, though, Chris.
He has, I think, yeah, well, Oliveira, I would say, is in a sort of the position I find myself in my single class races. If something, something's clearly happened, Oliveira had to pit on lap 12. He's sort of off strategy. He's sort of off pace. I don't know if he's off pace, but he's certainly off strategy. Is once you're not in that race, I've always sort of taken the view, as we see, this is a three-way battle between Romanesco, Antilla and Scanfurla here, which is going quite nicely, with Luke Santos catching up as well. Actually, that's an MP2, that's 37. I think that's Lucas O'Neill getting it nicely out of the way. Is that, yeah, once you're sort of not in the race, I just get off the line and let people through, because it's like, well, I'm not racing anyone, I'm just here to finish and pick up the pieces. But not every driver does that, as Scanfurla takes the inside, Luke Santos takes the inside, but has possibly outbraked himself. Scanfurla gets that place back around, but I don't think he's going to be able to, is he going to be able to close the door into turn 11? Not quite. Luke Santos takes the inside, and is going to have the inside for the next two corners of 12 and 13 as well. But I think Scanfurla might be able to come back on him along the main straight with the advantage of the draft. Luke Santos is over a second behind Iro Antilla, so he's not going to be able to benefit from it quite as much. But is Lorenzo Scanfurla going to be able to get close enough into turn 1? It does not look like he's attempting to make the move. But when we've seen good side-by-side racing in this race across all three splits, it has been really, really solid racing from the drivers who've managed to keep it on the circuit.
Yeah, you kind of have to expect that from a top split race, but we're not in a race where we've got what I would call top split drivers. A lot of the guys are similar rating to us, Chris.
Well, actually, some of them are, but certainly the drivers still. Actually, well, I've nearly got the same iRating as our leader of GTEs, but that is, I mean, I wouldn't be in the lead of GTE where I'm driving. That's all from open wheel, but yeah, I mean, I guess it goes to show you that iRating doesn't necessarily dictate your pace, because, I mean, we've got Juan Martin here, who's over 4,000 iRating in 5th, and, he's not really been troubling Jerome Coquelet in the lead. So, I mean, their iRating could be because of other cars, same as it is for me. I'm good in open wheelers. I'm rubbish in these cars, so I have a huge amount of respect for the speed that everyone that's still racing here tonight is able to get along. Well, one thing, sort of just to change the subject we were talking about before we started, that I think is disappointing is where we've had loads of manufacturers in GTE this season, we're back down to a single make train pretty much, with Juan Martin in the Ferrari, the only one that's really, actually, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that Dennis Wolf is now in the lead of LMDH. Something's obviously happened to Nicholas Bowe, who's not pitted, and actually, I think he may well be
stopped on track about 4/5 of the way round.
He has, because Morgan Soom, who we've not talked at all about today, who started in 6th, is now up to 2nd. And Nicholas Bowe is not moving. Dennis Wolf has inherited the lead. I mean, Nicholas Bowe, I wonder if that's a disconnect.
I think it might be a disconnect, Chris, because he's just falling down the order, look.
Yeah, although looking on the in-game chat, it doesn't look like it said he has disconnected at any point. Something's clearly happened though, because he's not showing up as existing, and that will be a very bitter blow, because he would just set a purple final sector on the previous lap, so clearly still had the pace, as their fuel tanks were getting a bit lighter as they're approaching their pit window. But, I mean, I don't think Dennis Wolf, Morgan Soom or Alex Lullier will be complaining too much, as they are now our top 3 of the LMDH. And actually, Dennis Wolf is in a similar position to what Nicholas Bowe was, because he has got a 23-second lead over 2nd place and a 46-second lead over 3rd place. So, barring his own issues... Oh, actually, that's a bit of a false dawn, because everyone outside the top 2 has pitted, and now Dennis Wolf is pitting. but the total pit lane time of third place was 39 seconds. So you'd like to think with a 46-second gap, he's going to come out ahead of P3. Unless he pits on this lap, Morgan Soom should come past himself. We can see on the track map, he has pitted as well. So Dennis Wolf should retain the lead. While this is happening, Troy Romanesco, Fabian Stamko, who I think have spent pretty much the entire race in a battle, if not with each other, certainly with other LMDHs. You can see all three classes on the same section of track, and it's the most awkward part of the track as they nearly come together. That GTE offline and getting in the way of Fabian Stamko, I don't really think the GTE could have done much different there, and I think that's what that headlight flash is saying, really, is, well, where did you expect me to go? I was offline because of the LMP2s that had already come through. And that's Sebastian Pedersen in P10 and a lap down in the GTE. So he's clearly had quite an eventful race. But it has been slightly chaotic. It's not even that, it's not that small of a track. I think it's just, as you say, Sean, it's a very flowing track and it's very awkward to get past other cars on. But when the racing's been good tonight, it has been really quite entertaining.
Yeah, and this is what we expect from this multi-class racing. It's just brilliant to watch because there's always something on track happening somewhere.
Yeah, and you can see, looking on the track map, about 2/3 of the cars are occupying about 2/3 of the track. Nicholas Bowe is going again, but I don't know if he's actually taken his pit stop properly, because it thinks it's the timing screens are saying he's only stopped for a second, which very much wouldn't be the case. He's down in P12 for the LMDH split, and he's got 4 LMP2s on the same lap ahead of him. But I mean, at this stage of the race, he's really just looking at a recovery drive. And we can have a look here at, we've got a battle developing. Hon Martin, I mean, really not showing the kind of pace we're used to seeing him with here. Now, I asked a few Dutch friends to give me a bit of help here with the pronunciation, so I am sorry to our number 24 driver if I mess this up. But we've got Mitchell Marshalkavir in P7 at the moment. He's up 5 places and he's about to go up a couple more because Alessandro Patiglio is in the pit lane, and coming out as well, Andrew Medell, I think, is still just ahead of him. He might be on the inside here. No, he's a little bit further up the road, but you know, a lot to be interested in here for, you know, this is now up 6 places, and I think Andrew Medell may have been compromised by a prototype. That's, I think it was Morgan Soom as he was coming out the pit lane, who obviously is going to want to stay ahead because of just how much quicker those cars are. But Andrew Medell is in danger of being dragged into this battle for P5 and P6, as Juan Martin sort of feels like he's tumbling down the order a little bit, but that might just be the pace of the drivers around him. But just sort of to have a look at what's happening in the lead of GT, Luke Smoker, after being hit off earlier, he's recovered to P2 still, but Jerome Coquelet is relatively comfortable. I mean, they're on the same straight at least, but I'd say 2.5 seconds with the pit stops already having been done and 14 minutes of this race left to go. Jerome Coquelet is very much in the driver's seat for the win in GTE, and I think it's sort of similarly stabilised in LMP2 with Francesco Lamanna now 6 seconds clear of Shiva Nath, so that's a very comfortable position to be in, but there is an LMDH behind him as we approach the more technical parts of the circuit. Let's see how comfortably they can get round. That's Clement Marie, who in a pretty isolated 3rd place with, Alexis Lullier 4 seconds up the road. He will want to get past quickly, and that's what that headlight flash is saying, but not able to do it there. You almost wonder if it's worth Francesco Lamanna just letting him through so that he can focus on safeguarding his lead, and looks like it's going to be done just into the braking zone of 7 and 8. So I think Francesco Lamanna can relax a little bit now.
I don't think that flashing was warranted. I don't quite know what the LMDH there was meant to do.
Yes, I mean, if anything, I mean, not that I have driven the LMDHs enough to be that confident to say this, but you almost wonder if it was worth committing to just taking it on the inside of turn 5 just to avoid any potential coming together in 7 and 8, because it's such an awkward part of the track. We saw earlier with a few of the GTEs, you lose so much time if your line's compromised going up that hill because of just how fast turn 9 is as well. But I think at this stage as well for Jerome Coquelet, because I think, not that he may well know this, but Luke Smoker is more so in a battle with Sylvain Delpech for P2 than he is looking to try and bridge that gap. I mean, it's only a 4-second gap, so Coquelet just has to make one mistake, or a prototype make a mistake around him, and that gap could disappear. But it does put Luke Smoker in this really awkward position where he's obviously going to be trying to push as hard as he can to catch up the leader of GTE, but he's going to have to keep at least half an eye on his mirrors for Sylvain Delpech, and perhaps keep another half of his eyes out for all of these LMDHs and LMP2s coming through, because that seems to be one of the biggest menaces of this race so far. As I think round the outside of turn 3, to me, Sean, looks like one of the better places to go, and as I say that, LMDH nearly gets
Cursed
run
him,
round.
Chris.
I'm very good at that.
No, you can't do that.
I really need to stop. Really need to just stop praising people, because all it leads to is disaster. It's why I need to start being nasty to Paul Busby, because every time I've said how great he is, something's gone wrong. But Dennis Wolf in the lead of LMDHs does seem to be pulling out that gap quite comfortably. I mean, he was a full second quicker than anyone else last time around, and he was only half a tenth off his fastest lap of the race, so that's someone clearly in tune with their machinery.
Well, you say that he's quicker. If you ever look at Nicholas Bowes' fastest lap, it's a full second quicker again than what Wolf's running at them.
He will surely be frustrated about whatever happened earlier in the race to take him away from what at the time looked like a very comfortable win that he was due to have. But these races are an hour long. Just because something goes wrong in the first 5 minutes doesn't necessarily mean your race is over, and vice versa. You can have a fantastic race for 55 minutes and it can all go wrong at the last minute. I mean, hark back to a few weeks ago at Le Mans, where we saw some spicy re-entries absolutely ruin a completely innocent party's race. As we can see, a GTE lose it round turn 5 there, I think
that was our friend Juan Carlos Martin just losing it out of a turn there. Lost another single position there.
Yes, to Mitchell Marshall-Kavir. So again, apologies if I've got that wrong. I did actually practice it, which not many drivers can say that. Where I actually tried to practice their names. I do again apologise to our French and Polish drivers in particular, because it's often, it's entirely my own fault for having poor language skills. But we don't need to focus on that. We can focus on the excellent driving we've seen today instead. And Eero Anttila, who I think has recovered relatively well, considering he was at the back pretty much of the LMDH pack after earlier race incidents. He's now back up to P8, having started P5. And I think, I want to say at his lowest was 13th at one point, with Fabian Stamke just up the road. And again, let's not put too much stock in iRacing, but Anttila is car number 4, Fabian Stamke car number 30, and Troy Romanesco a little bit further up the road, car 23. Sean, how much do you think Anttila is going to be able to catch these guys and potentially recover a few more places?
I think it's going to be status quo. Now there's 8 minutes left. What's that? 6 laps?
I thought it was about that. I guess it depends. And again, every week as we get to about 10 minutes to go, I try and work out where the leader of LMDH is going to be in terms of when the clock ticks down to 0. And every week I get it catastrophically wrong, because maths is difficult even when you're not also trying to commentate on a motor race. But you can just see on that track map, Dennis Wolf's lead, it looks pretty safe. I mean, he could afford to stop that car, do a donut, carry on again, and still be in the lead. I mean, I would recommend against it, but he's looking pretty comfortable.
I think that's, yeah, I don't know if that's breaking some sort of sporting code doing that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in someone being aware enough to protest that, and perhaps petty enough to protest that, because it's not like it wouldn't improve your result. It would just get you banned.
Yeah, petty. Petty is definitely the word.
No, we've seen some drivers from these splits get banned for recent transgressions. That's I mean, it's hilarious or a shame, depending on who you ask. Let's not get into that right now. But Luke Santos, I think we've ignored him a little bit here. He's actually quite comfortably staying on the coattails of Viro Antilla here. And they are the closest two cars on the track currently. Antilla very much making it clear he wants to defend that position. But Santos getting past very easily. So I almost wonder, actually, is there some damage to that car? Or did Santos use his boost or slowdown?
I'm assuming it's going to be a bad exit out there. Don't tend to get a slowdown there and really cut the inside, and they both didn't do.
No, I mean I mean, on the chicane you can, well, the sausage curbs do more damage than the slowdown does, I would say.
Yeah, out of 12, if you take 12 a bit too narrow, you get a slowdown.
Yeah, it's like the grown-up version of the last two corners at Okayama, I've always thought of it as. And I find the first of those two is very stressful because there's so much time to be gained on the inside. But, I mean, generally you're in slightly lower powered cars at Okayama, but it's the commitment you need to get maximum speed out of these cars. That is what is separating these top drivers from regular peons like myself. But Santos hasn't cleared.
I would say, Chris, I'd say that Okayama's last two corners are harder than those two last corners here today. Someone's gone.
Yep, and certainly in these cars I'd say that would be the case. I mean, you can vote generally on the tracks available in ESS. I'm not sure Okayama's ever made it onto the long list, and as much as I like Okayama, let's sort of hope it never does. And while we're on that, let's just quickly flag that if you're not already a member, you can look into the YouTube description of this video. There will be a link to the community Discord for the European Sprint and Endurance Series. You can come and join that, discuss these races, discuss the series in general. We've got channels for each car, so you can share setup advice or driving tips, all sorts. And of course, we do run this weekly championship standings for this broadcast split specifically as well, so you can look up the results and standings of that there as well. So just to remind you, the link to that is in the description of this video. You're welcome to come and join us and give us dog's abuse for the the completely free broadcast that we provide for you if you so desire. And while I'm waffling, we've got a battle for P2 in LMDh developing. Clement Marie has done very well to catch Alexis Lullier and is looking very racy behind him. And I mean, Sean, at this point of the race, we do start to see more aggression because track position matters so much more at this stage of the race.
Yeah, they'll all be timing down to the point where they can move their boost to attack mode to just burn off that battery right to the end. Whoever times it best is really going to get the best of that start-finish straight.
Yes, because you do really notice when these cars are in their build mode. It really took me by surprise when I first started testing the car, because I'm used to the Mercedes W12, where it is reasonably possible to strategically use their boost, although I would say, again, at my level, it's probably better just to stick to balance and focus on driving as best as you can. But unfortunately for these LMDHs, the way it's implemented, it really is just a case of stick it in balance and then drain the battery at the last few minutes of the race as we get down to 4 minutes to go. Dennis Wolf is about 4 corners away. He's just coming up to turn 11. So we're going to be...
So is that 2 or 3, Chris?
That is 3 laps remaining when he comes round next time, because we're looking at 90-second laps. So yeah, there'll be about 40 seconds left on the clock when he comes across the start-finish line in 2 laps' time, I reckon. But this...
Yeah, so going back to the boost, Chris, a lot of people are saying that what iRacing have implemented here might not quite be what it's like in the real car.
Yes, I remember reading some stuff about that. It sort of slipped my mind on the specifics of it, but yeah, the way the physics of the car implements the boost is not actually accurate to how the real life cars will do it. And you can see there, Lullier is really trying to take advantage of the draft of those GTEs, dipping back in between the two of them. I'm not sure he'll have gained much, if any, of an advantage there, but Clement Marie is going closer and closer to the back of the second place LMDH. And you do, I think, Sean, at this stage, if I were the P3 car, I would be looking to stick to the back as close as possible and just pressure him into a mistake. Has Dennis Wolf gone off track at turn 7? I'd swear I just saw him stopped.
I just was watching the gap and it did drop a lot, but it's starting to build up again.
He's definitely moving again, but I wonder.
See if we can find a replay,
I think
Chris.
you can see that. I think those tracks in the dirt there. I think that was Dennis Wolf, and we can see what's happened here.
It's quite late at night. He's probably fallen asleep.
Oh, that's the inside curb of turn 7. That was indeed his tyre tracks. I should be an investigative journalist or something. I've clearly got the skills, but if you're going to make that mistake, make it 58 minutes into a race that you're leading by 20 plus seconds, and with no other traffic around you, because he has recovered from that absolutely fine. Although one thing to keep in mind is his tyres are going to be just a little bit hotter now. And is he going to be able to manage that for the last 2 laps of this race? Is Clement Marie not close enough on the main straight this time around to make a move into turn 1? But again, Sean, I think to some extent you don't want to make the move yet, because it gives Alexis Lulier a chance to make the move back at the same place next lap, although you can't leave it too late, because obviously you do need to get past at some point as that GTE gets out of the way very charitably indeed, as we defend into turn 4. I think, are we going to see a defensive masterclass here from the number 7? Because we are now getting to the stage of the race. This again goes defensive into turn 5, but is that going to compromise his exit? Is Marie going to be able to get onto the alongside? They are going to go alongside as we come into 7 and 8. How brave are they going to be onto the brakes? Lulier closes the door on the exit, but they've got a GTE just ahead of them. Will that be awkward into turn 10? Is Marie going to look to make a move as we go potentially 3 wide? No, they've just about managed not to go 3 wide. Again, Lulier going defensive. But with the amount of downforce these cars have got, you can go quite wide. They're 2 wide. There's nearly a bit of contact there. That's a little bit sloppy from both of them. As we come on to the final lap, Dennis Wolf has just come across the line. This will be the final lap of the race as they come round the final 2 corners now. This is the closest Clement Marie has got to Alexis Lulier. But again, he's about 2.5 tenths behind as we come onto the main straight. Is he close enough to take advantage of the draft? Again, Lulier goes defensive early. What is Marie going to do? He comes back onto the outside and he brakes a lot later. Is he able to make that move stick? You can see just how hard he brakes. He has got the move stuck. But is Lulier going to be able to come back on him now? Marie is going to have to do the same thing that we saw on the last lap from the number 7 car behind him and go ultra defensive. And we can get a replay of that move. Or actually, this is a little bit earlier, so coming round. And yeah, there's a bit of contact there, but I don't think any damage will have been done. And actually, Clement Marie has managed to pull a second out in the live timing, so we can have a look in relaxation of the move. So much more confident on the brakes into turn 1, Sean, there. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it could have been that he knew that he was a lot better into turn 1. He didn't play his hand early. He waited until the last lap and then just made it stick.
And I do wonder if he's just got more fuel or something, because he's pretty comfortably clear. And all while that's happened, we've got Stegemann and Romanesco battling. We've got Stamker and Santos battling as well. This is Romanesco. Well, that was Dennis Wolf has won the race. Adventure 5 minutes ago, notwithstanding a pretty flawless drive from Dennis Wolf. I mean, very much beneficiary of Nicholas Bowe disconnecting, or something happened to him around about lap 20 of 41 it turned out to be, because Nicholas Bowe was doing to Dennis Wolf what Dennis Wolf has done to the remainder of the field, as Clement Marie has come through in second, Alexis Lulier in third, and Francesco Lamanna has just come through in first for the LMP2, quite comfortably clear of Shivanath in the end. And this is I'm going to choose to believe that was some friendly weaving between Romanesco and Stegemann. Stamker and Santos battling as well, and Stamker managed to stay ahead of Santos for those. And also a shout out to Jerome Coquelet leading the GTE. We were unfortunately deprived of a more serious battle between him and Luke Smoker after the latter was punted off on the penultimate corner by an LMDh earlier in the race. He's done very well, I must say, to only be 2 seconds behind the leader in the end. So that's perhaps a name to keep an eye out for in future races. And we're just waiting for, I think, the final few cars to come through the finish line. and we can hopefully soon bring you the official results, or let's not say official, let's say provisional, until we've totted up the all the things in the background that need doing, and we have got some race results for you here. Dennis Wolf, our winner from Clement Marie, who we saw on that final lap make the move on Alexis Lullier to finish second and third respectively, with Morgan Soom having a relatively quiet but successful race in fourth, Ruben Stegemann, Troy Romanesco battling throughout in fifth and sixth, Stamker, Santos seventh and eighth, with Antilla and Scanfurler the only other classified finishers. Nicholas Bowe, Gerber, Segoy, Prince, Hanink and Maziou all unable to finish. And LMP2, Francesco Lamana, I think, got a bit luckier with traffic than some of the other drivers, but still had to drive very quickly, very strongly to bring home the win in LMP2. 13 seconds clear of Shiva Nath, who was driving pretty quickly themselves. So let's not downgrade Francesco Lamana's victory. Clearly well deserved here. Paul Busby third on the podium, half a minute behind in the end. What could have been, he clearly had pace, but LMDh drivers just decided that we didn't want to see that. Mike Spans, very quiet race, very clean race, brings it home in P4 with Lucas O'Neill a lap down, Lucas Barza 2 laps down, Ian Harvey 4 laps down, and then Eduardo Roberto, Sabalok Stang, Alistair Catchpole, Jose Cazon, I think, were the 4 drivers caught up on the lap 1 incident. GTE's Jerome Coquelet, very comfortable win for the number 36 driver, very solid win for the Frenchman, with Luke Smoker 2 seconds behind him. And again, like we said, what could have been Sylvain Delpech in third, who fought his way up a few places to bet that. But I think our biggest gainer of the day was Mitchell Marshall-Caverd in fourth, Andrew Medel in fifth, Juan Martin in sixth, Lionel Cummings in seventh, Alessandro Partiglio and Rafa Oliveira, the other drivers in eighth and ninth on the lead lap, with Sebastian Pedersen a lap down, and Miyatake, Stumpf, Duvignac and Satterfield all unable to finish. I think, Sean, that's the most retirements we've had this season in a broadcast race.
Yeah, I don't remember one being so catastrophic so early on. Yeah, there's a lot of cars that didn't make it past the first few laps.
Yeah, although I guess that is the nature of Catalunya in multi-class racing. I, for one, think it was quite a fun addition to the calendar. I wonder if the drivers would perhaps want it to not be a night race if it is in the calendar for future series. But we will have a crowd favourite next week as we come from Road Atlanta. So I think from Sean Cranley-Swash and myself, it's a thank you for watching, and it's a see you next week from America.
Catch you later.